Hello, Sagittarius, and welcome to your reading. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura, and these will be your intuitive insights and advice for the month of January 2023. And because I'm getting a late start, I am going to extend the timeline. So for about 4 weeks, which will take us into the beginning of February 2023, the first week or so. That way we have a buffer. You guys are covered, and that will give me some time to get those readings prepared and put out for February when the time comes. So this will be for Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. If you know your 3 major placements, you can listen to any and all that apply, as they may resonate for you differently. And as always, before we get started, do keep in mind these readings are general in nature. They're meant to apply to a more broad collective of individuals, which means not every detail will be for you. I highly recommend you take anything and everything that does resonate. However, that connects to your personal circumstances. Use your discretion in deciding what is best for you, and you can simply leave the rest. So Sagittarius, Happy New Year, Happy 2023. I hope you guys are all doing well. If you're returning, I apologize. I was MIA for a few months at the end of 2022. Just had a lot going on. It was kind of a rough go, so had to pull my energy back and just focus on myself and family. I wasn't doing much in the way of energy work during that time, so now I'm back. I'm super happy to be here, so thanks for joining me. And if this is your first time being here, welcome. Thank you for sharing this time and space with me. I'm super excited to take a look at this month and see what is coming in for you. So we've got your oracle card. We'll do some tarot. Once I finished reading your cards, I'll share with you the channeled messages that came through as I took some time to channel before I got your card out and began this reading. And then we'll finish off with the final oracle message and affirmations to tie everything together. So also thank you for being patient. You are the last reading. I have been moving through the astrological signs in order. So you guys were dead last but not least. So very, very excited. And I think there's also a benefit of being the last sign to be read, because I'm already in the flow of things. So before we take a look at your overall theme, I'm going to share with you the channeled energetic impression that I was picking up on as I was connecting to your energy and preparing for your reading. And I have to say, like, it was kind of like a nervous, jittery energy. So you might be a nervous person. You might be somebody who just naturally is like a little bit more on edge, a little bit jittery. Like the kind of vibe that I got was almost like maybe too much caffeine. So not necessarily like jittery, like sketchy in a bad way. It was, yeah, just like a nervous energy, a feeling of being unsettled. And that could manifest in various different ways, like mentally, physically, emotionally. And then I also was kind of picking up on a sense of like a disconnect with self. So not necessarily that you're not comfortable in your own skin, but maybe just feeling like disconnected, like mind and body disconnected, or I got the sense that there could be some kind of like nervous system dysregulation, like, you know, like what your body is feeling versus what your mind is thinking, like something might be out of balance, and that might be leaving you feeling a little bit panicky or on edge. But yeah, so yeah, I got the sense that there might be like disconnection or dysregulation. So between like mind, body, emotions, spirit. I'm not sure if that might apply to you. And then I got the sense that there might also be like, as a result of this nervous energy, it might be kind of inviting in a lot of worry, because if you're in that dysregulated place, you're kind of in fight or flight, right? So you're not necessarily able to feel calm and safe in your environment. So that could be like within yourself emotionally, that could be in your physical environment, in your relationships, but being in that state of dysregulation and nervousness, having your nervous system on edge, yeah, that can kind of get us really amped up, and that can take us into a place where we worry more, we obsess, or we stress more. Sometimes we can catastrophize. We can become like easily like consumed by thoughts and worries. So I'm not saying this has to be you, but if you do identify with that at all, it could just be like the sense of dysregulation. It's not necessarily a result of everything around you being like awful. It might just be that you're just a little bit out of sorts. There might be some balancing, some grounding to do, maybe some like meditation, but that's what I'm gonna put out there. And that nervous, jittery energy can also be like an excitement kind of thing. So it's like if you've got a lot going on that you're really excited about and you're feeling really like amped up, and then you throw coffee on top of that, like you could end up with a similar kind of energy. But yeah, you will relate to that as makes sense for you. So your theme, your message for this month, the energy that you are kind of working with and that is highlighted is to the sea. And this is kind of like an interesting vibe because this is all about emotions, right? Like a lot of times, like in tarot, water is about our emotions, our subconscious, like the way that we process life and emotional experiences, the way that we experience love. And so it's really kind of interesting because she's in a paper boat, right? And she's got this little like arrow pointing in one direction, and then she's got binoculars pointing in another direction, and she's just kind of looking down. And she's in the middle of this body of water. And so the interesting thing is, it's like she doesn't have a paddle, she doesn't have a motor, and she doesn't have a sail, right? And the water is not perfectly calm, but there isn't a lot of movement, right? So that's the one thing that stands out the most, is there is not a lot of movement. And so you might be feeling like things are a little bit slow. Things might be feeling a little bit stuck or stagnant. You might be feeling a little bit dejected because of that. Like maybe there's not much going on. There could be something in particular that you are hoping to progress with or to move forward on that you just like haven't had the opportunity yet, or perhaps you're still waiting on the external environment to be right. Like maybe it's not the time to act. Maybe you're waiting on someone else in order for something to move forward. And it could just be that you're kind of at the mercy of, your situation right now. And as much as that can be a difficult thing to feel as though like we're stuck or we're waiting or there isn't much going on, because it doesn't even have to be that there's something specific that you're wanting to have happen or to move toward. It can just be that it is difficult to feel like you're in the same spot or things are not changing, right? Especially if you're not particularly pleased with where you're at right now, or you're not really super fulfilled. Sometimes being in that period of like just kind of sitting and waiting and even maybe feeling vulnerable, like a bit of a sitting duck, because there's not much movement, like not much that you can do. It can be feel really vulnerable and really difficult. And it can also get us into a place of fear. Like, is this the new normal? Like, is this going to last forever? Are we always going to be stuck here? Are things always going to be this way? If you find yourself wondering or asking yourself those questions, however you might relate to this or whatever kind of manner in which this pertains to you, this is an encouragement that like, no, right? This is very much situational. This is saying like, yes, you are kind of at the mercy of the environment. You're at the mercy of life, so to speak. The situation is not forever. It's not long term. It is meant to serve a purpose, right? And only you can decide what that's going to be, how you want to perceive it, how you want to work through it, right? Because it's like life is what we make it. But this is just reassuring you, like if you are experiencing that, it's not as a result of something that you have or haven't done, right? It's not that you're not enough or you haven't been working hard enough. And it's not that there's something that you need to do to change it, right? It's not that you're also like lazy and you're just not working hard enough. And that's why things aren't changing or you're not seeing results. It's kind of like right now, there's more to it than just you, right? So it's kind of like if visualizations are something that helps you, if you visualize yourself as this person, she's in this little paper boat, right? There's almost a sense of being stranded, right? Because like I said, there's no way for her to move this boat. But then you also see that she has wings. And so potentially there is the opportunity for her to transcend this specific situation or specific limitation, you know, if she chose to. So that's kind of like an interesting contradictory little thing, right? But obviously she doesn't want to abandon whatever this is, right? So this could be, you know, she doesn't want to abandon ship, right? And so, yeah, it might help you to visualize yourself in the times that you feel powerless, or you're beating up on yourself or making it about you. Just to remember that like the situation is bigger than you, right? And it's not like a personal attack on you. You're just kind of in a situation right now where you're at the mercy of things. And like a lot of times when things aren't moving forward, it's because there's something that needs to fall into place, or there's something that needs to come in order to trigger that next step forward. So if we were trying to force ourselves to move forward, it wouldn't necessarily serve us, because we don't necessarily have what we need in order to get to that next place, right? And so this is trusting that if you can surrender, right? Surrender the need to control, surrender the need to take action, surrender any kind of doubts that you have about yourself or why you're in this situation or what got you here. If you're able to just release and flow with life, there's a lot more depth for you to experience, right? So if you tie your time and energy up worrying and trying to understand and trying to kind of force things to move forward, it takes you out of the present moment, and it takes you out of just kind of recognizing like, this is where I am, and this is how things are, and this is what I'm experiencing, and this is how I feel about it. And then being able to take that all in and make an empowered decision to deal with it in a way that is peaceful, right? That takes the stress off of you. It can allow you to be more intentional, because this is saying like, it's about allowing yourself to be moved by the tides of your life, right? You're in a cycle. Think of the tides moving in and out. You are in a cycle. The tide will always come in and go out. You don't necessarily know the timing of that. You don't know when it's going to happen, but it will. And it's just trusting that if you have enough faith in the fact that you're not going to be stuck here forever, that there is some kind of purpose to what is going on, even if it's not something that is going to be readily known to you or that you will be able to understand. It's just sometimes having that trust and that faith is what allows us to surrender, right? Allows us to be in the flow. And then when we get into the flow and recognize like, hey, there's nothing that I really should or can be doing about this. So how do I find ways to enjoy? How do I find a way to relax? How do I find a way to treat myself better? Or how do I use this slow period where nothing's really happening to just further invest in myself and my well-being? Yeah, and it's kind of like, I think the guidebook says like being moved from the river of your life into the ocean of your life. So there's also a sense that everything is connected, right? Like this is a step on the path to, you know, wherever it is you're going or whatever it is you're trying to create or manifest. Yeah, and I think you're going to be very much encouraged to lean into that release, that willingness to flow with life, to see what life is showing you right now, because we can get so caught up in what we want and our expectations and the actions that we think that we need to take to get there, that sometimes we're provided the opportunity to just kind of stop and take a look around. And we don't realize that that's the point of where we're at, right? And we just we keep kind of hitting our head against the wall. And instead of like leaning into that opportunity and making the most of it and seeing what it's trying to show us. So I get the sense that there's probably something really beautiful in this time for you to be uncovered, or to like I said, if you choose to kind of find a way to encourage yourself and to make the most of it, if you feel so inclined. I've already triggered someone this month with having a positive outlook or trying to find the positive. I'm not saying that everything is beautiful and that there's a bright side to every situation, but I'm saying like, you know, we can't control what happens to us. Our responsibility is to control like, how do we respond to it and what decisions are we going to make moving forward. It doesn't mean that the stuff that happens to us isn't awful or negative or shitty. It just means like, we ultimately have to decide, is that going to define us? Are we going to take that on and make an identity out of it? Or are we going to try to connect with something that feels lighter? Are we going to try to invite in hope and positivity so that we don't have to be bound to that heavy energy indefinitely, right? So that's what I mean when I say like make the most out of it. It's not acknowledging that there's no struggle or no hurt or fear. It's saying like, is there anything that you can do to make your experience lighter? Is there anything that you can do to treat yourself in a way that's going to help you make it through whatever it is that you're experiencing, right? And so, yeah, and it's trusting that, like, you know, the more that we surrender into the flow of things, allow ourselves to be moved by life, allow ourselves to kind of work through things, to see them as they are and not to feel as though we have to influence them, because it's kind of like fighting the current. Like, you're not going to win, right? It's much bigger than you. The ocean is much bigger than you. You can't fight it, right? So it's like your only choice is to flow with it. And when you make the decision to flow with it, you allow yourself to have a lot more peace in the present moment. But then it also kind of dissipates your fears, because at the end of the day, you know, it's not up to you, right? And so sometimes you're just along for the ride. Like, sometimes there are points in life where you're just waiting. You're waiting for the wind to pick back up so that, you know, you can return home. And until then, right, like, there's not a lot you can do, and that's not your fault. So you might as well, you know, take it easy on yourself, right? Do what you can and let go of the rest. Yeah, so it seems like release is going to be a really big theme, letting yourself chill out, which I know can be easier said than done. So I'm going to get you some tarot cards. Your first card representing your challenge for this month that you might be kind of struggling with or have to work through, which has shown up as the Five of Cups. And then we'll get your second card, which is your advice for working through this challenging energy. Okay, so let's get your advice here. We're in the same color scheme, at least, and we've got cups, which is a water element. It's all about emotions, subconscious, all of that, intuition. Okay. And your advice is the Queen of Swords. And at the bottom of the deck, we have the Emperor. Okay. So we've got fire, water, air, and this is water. Okay, so this would make sense if you do resonate with this. So the Emperor is showing up at the bottom of the deck, which is kind of like the past underlying energy that is influencing this progression. And the Emperor obviously is a fire energy, Sagittarius being a fire sign. So that's kind of an energy that you are more familiar with, that comes more naturally to you. The Emperor specifically represents Aries energy. Aries is the first sign in the zodiac. It tends to be, it's kind of considered to be the youngest, the most youthful, maybe the least experienced, but it's kind of like, it's very excitable. It's very passionate, very driven to act on inspiration, to make change, to impact the world around it. And so this is quite often like a boss kind of energy, a leader energy. So it's like a visionary. You've got an idea, you've got the inspiration, you've got the energy to make it happen, and you're gonna fit all the pieces into place, right? You're going to move all of your chess pieces so that you can win the game and reach your end goal. And if you need to inspire other people and lead them and delegate them so that they can fall into place, so that this master plan can be executed, then you will do that. And it's a very inspired and passionate energy. It can also be aggressive. So there can be like the converse of that. There can be like anger and reactivity, especially if what you're trying to work toward is really important to you. If things go awry or according to plan, like not according to plan, it can be triggering, because Aries is not the most flexible, right? It's a very structured and kind of controlling energy. And so sometimes when faced with opposition or disappointments, the Aries energy has a difficult time kind of accepting that or flowing, right? Naturally, fire and water kind of oppose each other, right? And so as fire signs, sometimes the water, the emotions, the subconscious kind of stuff threatens to like put out our spark, right? We're not necessarily comfortable with the emotional implications of life because we're mostly driven by this like this passion or excitement, right? We can be a little volatile. And this is showing up as the past energy. So perhaps you were in a position where you've had to really be a leader. You've had to be making moves. You've had to be like focused and taking action and, you know, just looking after stuff. And it's like, just make it work, right? So maybe that's like an energy that you've recently connected with or something you've been really focused on. And that's what's kind of influencing what you're dealing with. This, because these energies oppose each other. This one's like, I know exactly what needs to be done and we're going to do it and we're going to make it happen. And this is like, wait, right? This is like, it's all well and fine to have passion and inspiration and motivation and to be showing up and putting in the work and making it happen. But, you know, you're no match for the ocean, right? You can't, you know, you can control what you're doing and you can try to control the environment around you. This has a difficult kind of controlling energy to it. But you're still kind of relying on the universe. You're relying on things to fall into place and for the environment to be ideal, right? And if it's not, there's not really much that you can do to influence that or to change that. So it's recognizing that even the best laid plans are susceptible to the way that life unfolds. And if you are in a position right now where you don't necessarily have an environment that's allowing you to move forward, it's trusting that, you know, that's okay. This is a part of your step. And even though you feel like it's getting in the way of what you want to experience or what you want to achieve, this is an integral step. And there's nothing that you can do to control that. So the challenge is showing up as this Five of Cups, which the first thing that always comes to mind when I see this particular card is there's no use crying over spilled milk, right? So it's kind of like these empty cups are, you know, disappointments, things that we were excited about or passionate about, or we thought was going to be like, you know, our happily ever after dream come true, and didn't turn out to be. So maybe something that we thought we wanted and then we got and we realized, nope, that's not it. Maybe something that we thought was going to be it and was taken away from us before we could see it through. But yeah, there is a sense of like something not working out, you know, being disappointed, being sad, maybe even being depressed as a result of the things that haven't worked out, or the things that, you know, you thought were going to be the most fulfilling be all end all thing, and you achieved it and it fulfilled you and made you happy for a short period of time until you realized, well, this isn't it forever. What's next? There can be a sense of sadness and recognizing like I've achieved this goal and it fulfilled me, but not the be all end all kind of way. And now I've got to, you know, connect with this next cup. And so you can see she's looking down. And as much as there's sadness and as much as there can be despair and a little bit of hopelessness, you see she's kind of tipping this cup out and letting it flow down. And it's flowing down into the light and then going back out to sea, right? And so it's like, instead of holding on to emotions and being impacted by them, it's okay to release them. It's okay to express them and to let them go. And it's just kind of like the cycle, the water cycle, right? Where it's like it evaporates, condenses into a cloud, comes down as precipitation, the whole cycle. It's kind of like our emotions can follow the same cycle, right? And it's not until we start holding them in and bottling them up that we really kind of start to experience trouble, right? So it's like allowing this to move through you, allowing yourself to recognize your disappointments and to validate them, allowing yourself to feel and express the emotions that go hand in hand with that loss, right? Or that disappointment. You know, it's allowing yourself to grieve, but it's not holding on to it forever and making an identity out of it, right? It's saying like, I'm going to release this, but in order to get to the other side, I have to move through it, right? And then it's going to go back out into the world instead of bottling up inside of me. And so she's got another full cup here, which is another opportunity for love and fulfillment and connection. But she's still kind of focused on this one. So you might be in the process of you might be in the midst of still processing, something that didn't quite work out, or something that you found out was just not quite it for you, that has impacted you on an emotional level. And you might be really working through the steps of processing and releasing those emotions, because she's not focused on the next cup, the next opportunity, right? She's still focused on this, right? So it's like you can acknowledge that it happened and let it go, but then it's like at a certain point, it's not going to serve you to stay in that energy. And then it's, you don't want to be moving on to the next opportunity or trying to find the next thing that's made you happy if you haven't quite let go of the sadness from the past one, because then you're just going to be blocking your energy from really connecting with this happiness and this potential. So however that might relate to you, that might be showing up consistently throughout the month as a struggle. Like, that feeling, I don't mean to laugh like at you. I'm just laughing because, that's life, right? Like sometimes it just comes at us, and the same painful things just keep getting jabbed at until we have experienced it enough to fully release it and move through it, right? Because that's just how it goes a lot of the time. So yeah, that might be coming up. It might be like a theme, one specific thing that is really kind of weighing on you emotionally and getting you down. It might be related to this sense of like not having control, not being where you want to be, not seeing the change or the movement like in yourself, your relationship, your home life, your career, just in general, not seeing any change, and the way that you feel about that and the disappointments that you have. And so it could be that this is partly why you're being given the opportunity to just kind of flow with things, right? Is that it's really hard to have time to process these emotions, to feel them and release them and fully let them go when we're busy in this like action energy and like control and, everything that happens as a result of what we've done, and we're responsible for making it all work. This surrender and release that's needed to flow with life and experiences is the same form of surrender and release that allows us to express these emotions. So yeah, you might find that theme coming up. You might find yourself triggered, this like difficult thing that perhaps has been on your radar for a little while and maybe has been impacting you, but you haven't quite felt ready to address. It might just kind of be coming to a head significantly enough that you can't like stay there anymore. So yeah, that might be really a major theme for you. And your advice for working through that is really just kind of staying true to yourself, right? So emotions can be overwhelming. They can sweep us off our feet. They can kind of envelop us. And sometimes it can feel like you're dying when you're experiencing like really, really intense emotions, or you've got a really intense purge, right? And this is knowing the truth of the matter, right? So this is saying like, you're solid, you know yourself, you know what is true, right? So it's using your discernment to identify like, what is a fear, right? What's a fear? What's a limiting belief? And what's the real truth of the matter, right? So it's kind of like not letting your mind deceive you, because when we experience these emotions, it's difficult, right? It's difficult to feel sad. It's difficult to feel disappointed. And a lot of times in feeling those emotions, we allow our minds to like validate them and find truths, right? So we're searching for like, why do I feel this way? Well, it's because I'm not worthy, and it's because I haven't been doing enough, and it's because, whatever, life is against me, whatever the case may be. It's recognizing that when your mind starts kicking in and telling you stuff as a result of what you're feeling, that's just part of you processing. You don't have to make it a part of your identity. You don't have to allow it to impact your thoughts and your perceptions of yourself and the world around you, because you know what's true at the end of the day. And you deserve to be fair to yourself, right? So it's kind of taking a step back and being the observer of your life and your experience from a more rational place, right? From an elevated place where you can say, this is just a temporary experience. Yes, this is really painful, or this is something really disappointing, or this is something that has a lot of emotional depth and it feels heavy, but this is just one individual experience. And as painful as it is to work through it, or as challenging as I'm feeling things are right now, I know it's not going to last forever. I know this isn't representative of who I am or my worth, you know? And it's kind of keeping your eyes on the horizon, being fair and true and honest with yourself about what's really going on, and not allowing yourself to be swept away or overcome by the emotions. And this can even be like subconscious patterns, right? So it could be like self-sabotage, things that are kind of coming into your awareness as a result of what you're experiencing. And it's just like relying on your knowledge of what you know to be true, right? And fairly kind of working through and nurturing yourself as you're releasing these kind of potentially difficult feelings. Because yeah, it's like, you know the truth, and you don't have anything to prove, and you don't have to be bound by your emotions, right? Like, your emotions, it's just a way that we process our experiences. So sometimes it's a result of what we've experienced, but it's just additional information that we can take into consideration. It's not the be all end all. It's just one part of the puzzle. And so you don't have to be bound by your emotions or swept away. And you also don't have to lock your emotions away so that you're completely only rational. But it's saying like, this is a time for you to rely on what you know to be true so that your feelings don't get the best of you, right? That's how you kind of navigate this. And I'm going to get into your channeled messages. So I took some time to connect with your energy before I got this card out and began your reading. And the first thing that came through was fighting demons. And so it's a sense of like, you know, feeling kind of troubled. Maybe there are parts of yourself or your relationships or your current circumstances that feel really dark or heavy or triggering. These could be the things that you deny about yourself, that you don't like about yourself, you beat yourself up about, right? So it's like if you have a bad habit, or like if there's something that just feels like it has power over you, right? Like think about fighting demons, what would that mean to you? And if you do feel as though you're fighting demons, it's like, well, why are they demons and why are you fighting, right? Because it could have a lot to do with your perception of yourself, right? So it's like, are they just demons because you're being hard on yourself, right? Because we're all human, right? We all have positive and negative qualities. And we all have shadow and light. You know, there is duality in all of the world, light and dark, positive, negative, if we need to like deem it as so. But there isn't a single person out there that doesn't also have a shadow, right? And shadow qualities, and like the dark side of their personality, or, you know, the place that they can go to, right? It's like, how dark can you get if things are not going well, right? Or if you're triggered. Like, we all have that. That's part of all of us. And so to judge yourself for having that and having those qualities, and to judge yourself for struggling with that, is just judging yourself for being a human like everybody else, right? It's not reasonable for you to expect that you're not going to have demons, or you're not going to have struggles, or you're not going to have shadow aspects that aren't like neat and pretty, right? So no one is going to be positive all the time. No one's going to be in light all the time, and no one's going to rid themselves of their shadow. That's not the purpose of this life. The purpose of this life is to acknowledge that just as there's duality in all of life, there's always going to be duality within us, and it's our responsibility to just hold space for it, right? To acknowledge it, to accept it, to work through it, and to try our best to bring it into balance so that we're not too far in one direction or the other. And we're always inevitably going to be fluctuating back and forth, right? So you can't expect yourself to be positive all the time, and you can't expect yourself not to be triggered or not to struggle, right? Or not to have shadow aspects. It's really just about saying, the whole point of doing shadow work, you might want to Google shadow work and see like what comes up and how that resonates for you. Like do some research on it. Because the whole point of it, it's not to fix yourself, and it's not to say, ooh, this is an undesirable quality that I have and I shouldn't have it and I need to fix it or I need to make it go away. It's not about that. It's about approaching ourselves with kindness and love and compassion, bringing the light to that darkness, illuminating it, seeing it for what it is, accepting that that's part of your existence, accepting that that's normal and okay. And then when you approach yourself with that kindness and compassion and you see yourself as just a human with light and dark like everybody else, you can use that love and compassion and that light that you've brought to the situation to help you heal the things that have happened as a result, right? So if you judge yourself, right? Or if there are shadow elements that have been triggered in the past and you've done things that have hurt you or made you feel badly about yourself, then working on forgiving those, right? We can't hold it against ourselves. All we can do is the best that we can do, to become whole, right? And if that requires us to acknowledge the not so great parts and find motivation to heal those aspects, then that's part of the journey, right? But you don't need to deny or shame yourself. You just need to kind of bring some love and understanding to yourself. And then it doesn't matter that you have shadow, because you're able to kind of say like, yeah, that's a part of me and it's uncomfortable for me to acknowledge, but that's a normal part of life. And as long as you're not feeding it and letting it get out of control, that acceptance is something that is probably just naturally going to help bring things into balance for you. And the second channeled message was susceptible. So yeah, this idea of being vulnerable, susceptible. Maybe you're somebody who feels like you're susceptible to sickness. Maybe you're susceptible, to other people's moods being brought down, or, conversely being elevated. So yeah, there might be a sense of feeling like you're really susceptible. You're really easily impacted by the people, the places, the situations around you. And it might be also about recognizing spots that you feel weak or vulnerable in. Like, what would you consider to be your susceptibility, your weakness, your vulnerability? And how do you treat yourself as a result? Like, do you get down on yourself about that? This could tie into your shadows, your demons. Are there things that you kind of beat up on yourself because you feel like you're weak or you're susceptible? So yeah, that might be part of the inner work and the reflection, particularly if you feel like I'm in this position because I'm not doing enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not working hard enough. It's like, it might just be triggering you to recognize like, no, it's not as a result of me being weak or not doing enough, right? So yeah, how do you recognize and relate to your perceived weaknesses, and how do you treat yourself as a result? I would say like maybe is something to delve into. And then I also will kind of add on top of that belief is a very powerful thing. So if we believe, like, we can be just naturally susceptible, but the more that we believe we're susceptible and the more that we kind of engage in that, the more it's true. So it kind of made me think of like placebo effect, or that study. There's a study that they did that proved that people who were in an elevator, right, and somebody sneezed and they were like, I don't remember the exact details, but everybody was kind of exposed to the same sneeze. And it's like the people who are like, fuck, I'm going to get sick, were the people who got sick. And the people who didn't even think about it were generally the ones, not to get sick. And so there was like this big study on the connection between like what we focus on and what we believe to be true. And sometimes our belief that it is true amplifies it, makes it true, or makes it more true, right? So sometimes we take those weak spots and we can make them worse by making them more powerful than they are, or making them more powerful than we believe we are. So it's like we don't have any say. So yeah, I just remember like placebo effect is a thing. So if you believe yourself to be susceptible or vulnerable or weak, is that serving you? Is it empowering you? And is it manifesting in your life in ways that you feel good about? And if not, then what if you were to challenge that thought with the converse that like, no, I'm not susceptible. I'm strong. I'm resilient. I'm capable. And if you can kind of connect with that energy and decide, no, this is how I'm gonna, like, if you flip the script on it, how might that change things for you, right? So yeah, and I think that's finding your power in powerless situations. The power is in how you perceive it and how you choose to believe about what you choose to believe about yourself. How you choose to see a situation has everything to do with what you're going to experience, because you can have the best environment, you could have everything, but if you're in a bad place, or you believe the converse to be true, you're not going to be in a position to appreciate, what you do have, even if your external circumstances are supportive of that, right? If you're not ready to connect with it. So you do have more power than you realize. It's just not necessarily power to influence your external situation. So it's a great time to focus on your internal environment. Okay, and your final oracle message is Akasha. Your guidance is divinely guided. So I'm going to read this directly from the guidebook, and you can decide how it might resonate for you. But this is a very spiritual card. So if you are a spiritual person, if you consider yourself to be intuitive, empathic, obviously we all naturally have these abilities. Some of us are just more tuned in than others. But this is basically saying, like, the things that you pick up on intuitively, the guidance that you receive in a spiritual capacity is divinely guided, right? It is in your highest interest. So to give it maybe a little bit more credit, right? And it doesn't mean to rely on it for guidance and to kind of give up all your personal authority, but it's saying, like, you're being given intuitive nudges and divine guidance for a reason, and you deserve to put that to work for you, right? So Akasha, your guidance is divinely guided. Akasha exists in the 5th dimension in the library of souls. All soul contracts, history, gifts, lessons, and more exist here. We each have access to this information of the past, present, and future, and can tap into it at any time. While we have free will, there are also points on the timeline of our lives that are predestined or pre-planned, soul contracts or agreements that were made before incarnating. It could be a company you choose to work for, a relationship you plan to have, or a person you agreed to mentor or help. Whatever it is, know that it is divinely guided and will not bypass you. If you are waiting for a sign to proceed, this card is it. You are likely living out an important part of your soul's journey, and you are exactly where you need to be. This is very exciting indeed. It is time to call in the support of your helpers, both in the physical realm and the spirit world, to trust the signs coming, to take note of your dreams, to notice any feelings or visions that you receive, for you are tapping into the wisdom of the Akasha, and you are being given the go-ahead to proceed. And then there's a transmission. So if you want to receive the transmission, if you connect with that ideology, then hold the card on your heart or envision yourself doing so and say, I open myself up to receive the wisdom of the Akasha. I am ready to download any information from my soul records that is in my highest good and the highest good of all right now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Interesting. Yeah, and so with Akasha, that's like also a very deep thing, like the Akashic records. It's kind of like an energetic library or vault of like all of our past lifetimes, all of our incarnations, past, present, and future, the connections, the experiences, the soul contracts. So it's saying, like, yeah, we have free will, but life is also predestined. And so before we incarnate on earth, we agree, right? There's a certain specific lesson that we agree that we're coming to master, right? And as a result, we agree to have certain types of experiences, right? To connect with certain types of people. And so this is saying, like, you are on the right path. The divine guidance that you receive, like, intuitively, is connected to this path that you have kind of chosen and these predestined moments that you've already decided you're going to kind of engage with. And so if you are a sensitive or you're like a spiritual person, you may be more easily able to access these Akashic records and this divine guidance. And if you're interested, there are also people who do like readings of Akashic records. And so if you want to find out more about that, you could potentially book a reading and have someone tell you about, your background, your lineage, because you might come from a very spiritual kind of background. You might have more knowledge and wisdom and experience than you really realize, because it's not just about this lifetime, right? And energetically, we have access to a lot more information and wisdom than we can possibly quantify or like validate, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna get you a couple affirmations. I had a whole pile fall out, so I just want to get like 2 of them. And these might be helpful for you now, or as you move throughout the month, make note of them and return to them if you need a little reminder or a boost. Okay, so your first: I allow people to witness their behavior so I can help them move beyond it, right? So this is about having boundaries, setting boundaries and maintaining them, allowing people to see themselves through their interactions with you, and to recognize that sometimes, like, so when we interact with other people, it's kind of like they're always a mirror. We are a mirror for them and they're a mirror for us. And what we see in them is a reflection of our own shadow and light. And it's recognizing that people may lash out at you and people may treat you a certain way because you're holding that mirror back up to them. And they may project their issues onto you, but it's just a result of them having an experience that maybe is not so positive, being reflected back to them, their own truth being reflected back to them. And you don't have to take responsibility for people positively or negatively being impacted by this reflection. You just have to, allow them to witness it. So you don't have to take on an emotional burden. You don't have to take responsibility for like apologizing. It's basically like, if you're holding the light and you're holding your boundaries and you're doing your best, inevitably people are going to be triggered by their own stuff when their own mirror is reflected, or their own image is reflected back to them. And it's not your responsibility to make it better or to apologize or to diminish yourself or to avoid triggering them in that way. And if they're interested, you can help them move beyond it, but it's also not your responsibility. So it's saying, like, people are going to be impacted by their interactions with you. And that's all you have to do. Hold up the mirror, let them see what they're doing, and let them decide if they want to move beyond it or if they're going to fixate on it. And I let my intimate relationships be my greatest learning devices for spiritual growth and healing. Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity for healing and growth and development through relationship. Relationships are basically the most transformative parts of our lives that help facilitate that growth. And so it's allowing the people, especially the people that you relate to most closely and intimately, to help you kind of move along your path and do your inner work. So just like the people that we trigger, we don't have to take responsibility or to validate or be brought down by that. But in the converse, like the people who are there to help and love us and support us, those are excellent vehicles for our growth. And it's allowing yourself to participate in those relationships in a way that help you continue along your path of growth and healing. So Sagittarius, I'm going to leave your reading here. I hope you enjoyed. I really hope this was helpful to you. If you did find this reading to be helpful in any way, the best way to support me is to like this video on YouTube, leave me a comment, let me know what you think or how it resonated. Beyond that, if there's anyone you could think of that might be interested in my readings, you can forward my channel or my content to them. And if you haven't already, hop on over to my channel at Bright Soul Collective Tarot. Ensure you're not only subscribed to the channel, but also click that little bell icon to ensure you're signed up for notifications, and that'll keep you up to date on new readings as they're posted. So Sagittarius, I hope this month is good to you. I hope you have a beautiful time working through this energy in spite of any challenges that might arise for you. It's been an absolute pleasure reading for you, and I can't wait to come back and reconnect with you and read for you again in the future. And in the meantime, I'm wishing you all the very best.